This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, a boon for entrepreneurs. The participants are Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, economic analyst, and Sonu Sood, AIR correspondent.
PM Mudra Yojana, PMMY, was launched by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on April 8, 2015 for providing loans of up to rupees 10 lakh to small and micro business units. Yesterday, Minister of State for Finance, Dr. Bhagwat Kisan Rao Karad, said a total of over 30 crore loans amounting to 15,97,000 crore rupees have been sanctioned under this scheme till now. Shubhamay, can you tell us about the broad objectives of this scheme and its significance in our country's economic growth?
Basically, Mudra Yojana does is that, it provides the small entrepreneurs, first of all, provides money, basically get institutional, they get about 10 lakh rupees. That's the upper limit. But more than that, what happens is they get linked to what is called the formal sector. That is the banking sector. That is a big advantage because what happens is that, say, supposing in small towns or in rural areas, there are a lot of these people who start off units. Like you would have seen these backyard poultry farms that come up in many of the North Indian states. You find many of these young men and women starting little workshops, the skills that they have. Now what happens is that whenever they start these small business units, they take out loan from, their family, from people they know. Often they take it out from the local money lender. Now what happens is that money becomes very costly for them. These loans typically would take time for these units to be able to pay back. For instance, catering units. You travel through any of the North Indian cities, you'd find these small shops which mushroom in different places and which should setting up, offering all sorts of things, food products. But what happens is since they are all high cost enterprises, and I say high cost because the interest rate on them is very high, it becomes difficult for them to survive unless the unit picks up very fast. And that is always an iffy thing. So essentially, the route to entrepreneurial activity is very difficult for these people. And here we are not talking about in hundreds or even lakhs, but in the hundreds of thousands, almost crores of such entrepreneurs who are trying to break into business for which they know they have the skill, but they don't have money that is cheap money to be able to make a success of it. So that is where the Mudra Yojana comes in useful. It sort of tells them, it sort of gives them the opportunity to break in where they wouldn't have been possible otherwise.
Yes, so you're saying that apart from existing business financing their operations, the small businesses, entrepreneurs with great business ideas but who need financial support avail of these loans to start a business. What are the advantages of going in for a Mudra loan?
First and foremost thing is the rate of interest. The rate of interest on a Mudra loan, there are three types of Mudra loan. There's a Shishu, there's a Kishore, and there's a Yuva loan, which means basically the three scales at which loans are given. These loans come at rates of interest which is bearable for the people, for those who are taking out the loans. If they have to take out these loans, and these loans can start from the smallest ticket size of rupees 50,000, which is a Shishu loan, going up to Kishore and Yuva loan. I mean, you can imagine the rates at which money lenders would be charging them. And it's impossible for them to be able to make a success of their business. So it's a very practical idea that why this Mudra loan, and Mudra is an acronym for Micro Unit Development and Refinance Agency. This gives out the money to, it actually acts as a refinance institution. We can talk about that later. But this gives out the money to entrepreneurs to be able to start business on the roadside, on the small, from their houses, and so on and so forth.
So you just mentioned about these three classifications which are there. Shishu for loans of up to 50,000 rupees, Kishore for loans between 50,000 to 5 lakh rupees, and Tarun for loans of between 5 lakh to 10 lakh rupees. So broadly, can you tell us the rationale behind this classification and who are the categories of business or entrepreneurs who will borrow under the Shishu category, who will borrow under the Kishore category, and who will borrow under the Tarun category?
Actually, it depends on the person who's taking out. Let's imagine a young man, often it's a young man, but we do hope that more women will also be getting into this thing, wants to say set up a haircutting salon or a small shop to sell foodstuffs, sweets or savories anything of that sort, or it could be a tailoring shop. Now, obviously, that person knows how much she or he will need as a loan. I mean, that's intuitive. So based on that, the person's apply. Normally, it is expected that given the business risk, a person will first take out a Shishu loan, which is a 50,000 rupee loan. And then once the person has been able to rotate that money, then the person that has been able to pay it back, they will then graduate to the Kishore loans, which is from 50,000 to 5 lakh, and then hopefully graduate to the Tarun, which is the 5 lakh and 10 lakh space. So that is how these loans work. Of course, it's very early days, but still the potential is massive.
And you talked about the interest rates being benign. In the interest rates, does it depend on the borrower also upon their credit history or their business history or business turnover, or is it purely as per the guidelines of the government?
That's an important point, sir. Basically what happens is most of these people who are coming in for these loans will be those who are first timers. So they won't have even a formal credit record. So for them, naturally, when they used to go, or the expectation is that they're going to moneylender, the rates of interest would be high. But if they come to the Mudra framework, they should be getting a softer loan. And the credit history will not act against them. So that's a very important point.
Whenever a person takes a loan is about the collateral, that causes a lot of stress to the borrower. So in this case, is it collateral free or they have to give some collateral?
Obviously, that's a big thing. Thanks for pointing it out, that they will not have to give collateral. In fact, if they have to give collateral, then most of them will not be able to qualify the first time. That is why this concept is very important. In fact, government data shows in Mudra loans have grown and there are big ones. But given the extent of the size of the economy and the demand that is there, rate at which it should grow needs to be far higher. For instance, in year 20, which was a normal year of growth of the economy, they had grown only 5%. As the data shows, about 88% of these loans were for the smallest ticket size. Of course, that has slightly started changing. Now the data shows that its Shishu category is about 66% of the share among additional employment, and Kishore is 19 and Tarun is 15. So there has been some improvement there, that the people are taking more loans. They are graduating from Shishu to going on to Kishore loans. And remember, these loans are under this Mudra Yojana. While the name is Microfinance Refinancing Agency, the entities which give out these loans are the banks. So there's no separate institution which give out these loans. These loans are given out by commercial banks or the regional rural banks or the non-banking financial companies, even microfinance institutions. So these are the institutions which are already on the ground, which have got branches all over. They will be the ones who disburse these loans. So to qualify for Mudra, that's an important thing to often understand, that people don't have to go to any fresh new agency that they have not heard about and try to understand where to give it. No, you can go to the nearest bank or preferably the microfinance institution and try to get loan from there.
With this vast network of institutions, as you said, commercial banks, regional rural banks, small finance banks, microfinance institutions, and NBFCs, with all of them offering this facility, is it very easy to apply for this loan? What are the options for applying online and for submitting physical applications? They can go to any of these institutions.
Essentially, the best place to get these loans is the microfinance institution. While we talk a lot about banks, and obviously banks have done a great work in terms of the Jan Dhan scheme. It's almost like 42 or 43 crore accounts have been opened, which is a huge number. But yet in rural areas, the microfinance institutions are the best places from where to take out these loans. Why so? The reason is that these institutions have direct contact with the people. So somebody who's coming in without knowledge of the banking sector, or even if there's a knowledge, it's very rudimentary, and would be scared about going to a bank to ask for a loan. A microfinance agent who operates almost like at the doorstep, holds weekly meetings with the people, with the self-help groups, is a person who's known to them, gives out much more level of comfort. So for all the people who are taking out first-time loans, for the second time and others, they would be already be knowing the ropes, so they can work the system. But for the first-time users, because they would not trust the unfamiliar ways of handling their money. The soft touch of the microfinance institutions comes in very useful. In fact, there are very good reports from many of these MFIs like Cashco, Microcredit, which have begun to use credit analytics tools to offer targeted financial services to the underbanked and unbanked population. So this is very useful. So yes, that's where the work comes in.
And the online portal, what would you say, www.udyammitra.in, how user-friendly is that? Can the people who are applying for this loan, who are familiar with the online transactions, can they avail of this also?
For the first-time users, it is necessary to have a guidance. And as I said, there will have to be some institution through which it will be going. Mudra by itself will not be giving the loan. Mudra is not meant to give loans directly. Mudra by itself is not an agency which can give out loans. It gives out loans through these entities, the member lending institutions. So it is better that all and everybody goes to gets themselves familiarized with what is possible. Sure, the Udyam Mitra is a very useful alternative to give them information about what is the possibilities. The more they see, the more they'll get confidence that this is indeed very useful, and that works as a sort of amplifier to help people feel confident that this is entirely possible. And once they have that confidence, they can then approach the institutions to be able to take out the loans. In fact, typically you notice that this is happening if you look at the state-wise data. Now, what it does show is that typically the states which have a very evolved MFI network, states like Andhra Pradesh, states like Tamil Nadu, in fact, surprisingly in North India, states like Bihar, where there is renewed emphasis on microfinance, the Mudra loan scheme is doing rather well.
Shubhamoy, the age criteria is 18 years to 65 years. Now, as far as the returning of the loans or repayment is concerned, that is 1 year to 5 year period. So EMI is the most often used mode of payment here, also repayment, which we use for many loans, personal loans or home loans or auto loans.
The rates of interest are soft. If the EMI shouldn't be a problem. And under the Mudra thing, there is a forbearance period that of how much time the people can take before they start paying back the loan. So that also is an advantage. They don't have to start paying back immediately the next month. And that gives a lot of confidence. So there are lots of these little details that are built into the Mudra concept, which helps the people to bring in that they will be able to do it. And what happens with Mudra, one shouldn't look at just the Mudra universe. What happens is that once this sort of a small ticket loan starts expanding, in fact, in the developed markets in abroad, it is the small ticket loans which are actually one of the first steps through which entrepreneurship expanded in those countries. You would find that what happens is banks and others, they also start expanding their portfolio even without waiting for the Mudra support. And they can do that. They have the financial muscle. So that helps them to expand the credit window. So, banks and private sector non-banking financial companies gives a tremendous amount of help. Like last year, for instance, during the COVID wave, microfinance institutions, lender group, apex body Southern, it asked the RBI for a loan forbearance in the banks and non-banking financial companies to help the first-time entrepreneurs to be able to take out and to be able to hold the loans without having to rush back to have to pay it even though they are in distress. So that happened, that moratorium. So essentially all of these helps to develop the universe of loans, the universe of expands the entrepreneurship, and that is what is necessary.
Absolutely. Bottom of the pyramid, small businesses, entrepreneurs, women, all these sections have benefited from this PM Mudra Yojana and will continue to do so in the years to come. Thank you so much for this comprehensive discussion, Shubhamoy.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, a boon for entrepreneurs. The participants were Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, economic analyst, and Sonu Sood, AIR correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.